Love on repeat. You just hit delete. Wishing they were me. Love on repeat.
All right, guys, we've deliberately come to this location because of its exposure to the wind on this part of Ibiza today, rather than just doing the sea trial in perfect, everything's amazing, flat water, calm conditions, which I know you guys don't want to see. I'm going to expose this into the wind and into some oncoming seas virtually immediately. It is what it is. We've got what we've got, maybe, 10 knots or so. So it's what Mother Nature has provided us today. So we're running the triple V12-600s on this boat. We have probably about 60 to 70% of fuel on board, and I'm going to be running through the rev range. I'm going to be playing with the trim. I'm running K-plane trim tabs on this one. I've got them fully retracted at the moment, but I'm immediately going to be playing with them as we get out into these conditions. I'm just clearing the land here before I begin to accelerate. So yeah, we'll do an upwind run, we'll go across the wind, then we'll test the full speed range going downwind and explain to you what's happening. I can also talk to you about fuel flow. Currently just 25 litres per hour total fuel flow at 5 knots. God, this place is beautiful. I could totally understand why you get a boat like this in this part of the world. Your views forward and around are exceptional, and also your ability to have guests join you for the transit to Formentera, which is where you're going to go in a place like this, and then also just to reach over or look over your shoulder and communicate with people back at the big table. The massive dining table there is quite doable. Okay, let's start to increase our speed. Just doing 7 knots. I'm actually just going to bring the boat up to slowly up onto the plane, and we'll keep clearing the rocks here, and then we will bring ourselves into the wind. I have no trim tab. I've got the engine trim on auto at level 2. I'm at 3,000 RPM at the moment and doing a comfortable 14 knots. And just about to immediately start going into these waves. Okay. Just slow speed at the moment, 120 litres consumption, 3,000 RPM. You can feel the displacement of this boat. You can feel the weight. So what is that translating to? It's translating into comfort. That's what's happening. Okay, so let's just increase that speed, 3,200 to 3,300 RPM. I've got no tab on the trim tabs at the moment. At this speed, I don't feel like it's necessary. I'm at 18 knots and I'm consuming 175 litres total. And now we're going into some of those waves. And let's actually just lower the trim tabs a little bit, 3.9. I'm getting 22 knots SOG, really comfortable, 0 trim tab, a little bit of engine trim, no noticeable bow raise, but let me just lower those tabs a little bit now. And yeah, noticeable improvement with wave cutting action. If you just do 30% to 40% down, you're really lowering the cutting angle of the bow into those waves and giving yourself a bit of a smoother ride. But from my perspective here, if this is comfortable, given the chop that we have, hopefully you can see through camera too, it's just short, sharp stuff. Your guests back there are aft of the middle of the boat, the center of gravity's way back there, but they're going to be super comfortable. So now let's just put these little waves on our starboard beam. And again, I'm not focused on speed just yet. 4,100 RPM. We'll just sort of do this at about 24 knots. So 4,400 RPM, 24 knots, a little bit of bow down, and I'm consuming about 230 litres. That's going to vary depending on your trim, dry, comfortable. Feels good. Engine noise levels are so low in these motors. I'm a big fan of that from a social perspective. Now let's start to increase our speed. I've got someone in the water up ahead, and that's a rock. I'm all clear of that. And let's start to increase. So 4,800 RPM, 27 knots. We're consuming over 300 litres. I do have a little bit of trim down. So because of the waves, let's just go up and feel that and get to 30 knots. So at 5,000 RPM, I'll just reduce my trim tabs for a second, feel the bounce. Yeah, so at 5,000 RPM, I'm seeing 31 knots. I would potentially put a little bit of trim down with these waves behind me. So let's just play with that. Also from a visibility perspective, let's just do 15, 20%. She feels like a big yacht right now. She feels like a big, gracious yacht powering through these swells. So at 5,500 RPM, I've got a good 32 knots to play with, and I'm comfortable. Yeah, I would probably sit up here at times, depending on the angle of attack that I've assumed, to just for comfort and visibility. And I may also flip this up because this footrest works well for that. Let's increase that speed. Okay, 35 knots. She rips. I'm at 6,000 RPM. And let's just give it wide open. I've got a little bit of trim tab down, but I'm seeing 37 knots. And if I just do a little bit of trim tab up, you know, we're consuming the 500 litres an hour here, so you're not going to be doing this all day long. That's it. We saw 6,437 knots. But if we just be sensible and dial that back, trim the boat out, I'm now back to 5,000 RPM. 30 knots easy, which is such a nice cruising speed if you want it to be. So I think what I can divulge from that is that we've got 36, 37 with our weight and fuel load. We're 4 people, equipment and fuel today, with our weight and fuel load. And then if we want to do a bit of a 30 to low 30 knot cruise in the hovering around the 5,000 RPM, we can. And then if we're going into the wind and chop, we're going to be playing with trim and speed. But let's do a nice banking turn. You feel the size of this boat right now. Lovely. Yeah, she's gracious. That's the word that's coming to mind. So just a little drop of the head, although this teardrop shape gives me good viz even when I am heeling the boat over to port. And I'm going to drop my speed. I'm going to go straight into these waves. And let's just go through some of the other cruising speeds. So once we've dropped below that 5,000 RPM, I'm seeing a 28 knots into the wind and waves right now. It's super comfy and yeah, gracious. This is going to be good for guests. You know, this will be good for a captain as well. And let's just drop that speed a little bit more, 4,500 RPM. Let's just have a play at 4,500. I see 25 knots, 250 litres total consumption. Actually, 26 now that she's settled in. Let's go down to 4,000 RPM. 4,000 RPM. I see 23 knots. Very comfortable. Noise levels, really, really great actually. And 230 litres consumption. I've got bow down because we're going into the wind. Let's have a look at 3,005. Okay, 3,006 there. 3005, I see 20 knots. And consumption's really dropping now. We're at 170 litres. I still have quite a bit of trim tab down. And then let's look at 3000. Getting to 3000, we're at 3.2 now. I just love the airflow, the fresh air, the access to the, you've got a real great connection to the ocean when you're on a boat like this. But however, we are so high and protected, I think everyone's going to feel safe. So I see 16 knots and 127 litres consumption at 3000 RPM. Comfortable. Let's look at 2.5. Okay, 2.5. Yeah, some great swells behind us, as I would expect, but I'm seeing 12 knots approximately, 2.5, 2.6. Let's have a look at 2000. And you are definitely off the plane here, where our waves are dissipating and catching up with us. That platform works well. It's well clear of those waves, so I'd also be happy in a considerable following seat in the ocean. If we're talking Australia, for example, I'd have that platform all the way up and she's going to be clear of any potential damage. 2000 RPM gives me 8 knots, 48 litres now, consumption at 8 knots. And then we're really down into the no wash speeds, which feels like it's somewhere around that 1100 RPM. Once you get into this speed range, you then want to potentially start referring to your rudder angle indicator, which is on here on the screen, because remember, these engines don't turn left and right. So it just gives you a little bit of a mental assistance if you kind of, if you're just distracted talking to your friends, to be honest, and you forget where the rudder is. Obviously, the boat's going to point where you steer it, but it's just useful around the dock as well if you're still in throttle mode. But obviously, as soon as you transition to joystick mode, it's going to center those rudders and it's going to take over essentially, because it's going to do the calculations from here. We'll do that at another part of the video. So interesting. What did we learn from that? Gracious is the word I'm going to use. This is yacht-like. It's got the high speed, but it's very, very comfortable and impressive with the right approach to your day and the right trim. We're using trim tabs, not interceptors. You can keep this thing on course and everybody dry and comfortable in a place like this. So that's no dramas. From a visibility perspective, these carbon pillars here are not a problem. I've got plenty of places to move around and be comfortable. And I think if you're a short bloke like me, you are possibly going to be moving yourself up like this on the carbon footrest and down as you are raising and lowering the bow through the speed range. But from a operational perspective, this is all very low workload, so that's good. And head height is awesome. You actually have this increased head height in this section. Yeah, that's still going to work for tall blokes. Actually, to be honest, you can be super tall and still be fine. And just check the ending of the glass here, depending on how tall you are. But I'm 5'7" and I'm in the middle, so you've really got to be a pretty tall bloke to be stressed about that. And pay attention to this step here. Again, we'll test that out in the next part of the video. Awesome. On to the next bit. All right, guys, so we are going to be deploying the anchor now. This system is a like a pneumatic. It essentially, when we release the windlass, it's going to push the this covering on the bow. It's going to extend and deploy and allow us to then lower the anchor. You'll see it in a second. Okay, so now we are preparing to deploy. Deploy. Okay, so you can see the housing opening That's the best term to use, housing. I'm going to call it a housing now. And the chain and anchor just self-deploy. It's quite a simple system, actually. And the anchor is on the sand, and now you can release more chain.
You have 10 meters.
Okay, so it's pretty no nonsense compared to having to deploy a bow roller over the bow via an opening hatch and some of the complex systems that we do see on some boats. This one is relatively uncomplex because that door mechanism is just incorporated with the extendable bow roller, which we can now see from this side profile shot. And we do have a rubbing strip or chain protector on the bow. If you can see, I might actually whip around the other side so you can see that chain, because if we were going to push back over the anchor, the chain would rub the bow. That's why we have that stainless steel protection tab just there. Now you can see it. It's a little bit easier to see with the sunlight. So that's it, guys. We're in pretty shallow water here, so we didn't need to deploy a lot of chain. Is on. Now we're going to go and have a look at the boats in the berth to see where we are. It's only second time it's parked in this spot, so it'll be a bit of a test park. Which I don't remember which boats were. Which
It's A49.
A49. Give a little bow thrust. Bow thrust. Bow thrust. Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's good. That's a good distance. Okay. How does it drive? What should you compare it with? And I guess what sort of experience level should you have if you're going to jump into something like the T50, and potentially what engines should you select and how should you spec this up for your boat life? Well, that's going to be up to you, but hopefully this video helps you make that decision. So how does it drive? It is graceful. It is high 20s cruising speed, low 30s cruising speed if you wish. We also just did 43 knots. So when you get into the flat water and you trim the thing out right, you can do quite high speeds should you wish. We didn't achieve that in the first part of the test because of the waves and possibly my trimming. So there you go. So she's got quite high wide open throttle capabilities, but what does that translate to you with the outboard setup? It just means high cruising speeds. So that's getting to Formentera faster than your last boat. That's the whole idea. In terms of experience level, I think you should have had some boats in the past before. It is quite a high gunnel. So you need to be thinking ahead. You need to be deploying the fenders in the correct location. You need to have good situational awareness over the bow, so because things are going to disappear if they get really close to you in and around the marina. So you may not be able to see, for example, someone on a kayak or a real small jet ski or small tinny type thing. So you want to be looking around and have good situational awareness. However, with the skyhook on the joystick, you can just stop and chill out and buy yourself some time, which is what we did before we came into the marina. So we deployed the fenders with the skyhook activated, so we weren't stressing, we weren't rushing, and we were stationary. So just think about that and whether that's relevant to how you're going to boat. Do have a think about the tender deployment, whether that's also relevant to your part of the world, and whether that setup that we have on this boat or a crane and a Williams jet tender is going to be more suitable to you. What should you compare it with? All of the luxury top-end Mediterranean day boats. So go and look at the Pardos, go and look at the Fjords, go and look at everything else in between that is in that category. And then if you want to do a semi-custom build and absolutely set it up for yourself, go to Tesoro. I think that's the key point of difference, in that they will allow you to be a bit creative, and no two boats so far that I've seen on the Tesoro line are the same. And if your focus is about being comfortable for you and your guests, we're not trying to be a mangusta and kick off rooster tails. I think it's graceful. I think it's comfortable. I think it's protection from the sun. I think it's protection having the high sides. And it's also heaps of volume, heaps and heaps of volume. Stand-up headroom everywhere. I think those are the key points that you may be may make you lean more towards something like this. I felt coming into the marina, her weight, her 20 plus tons when loaded. So when you are using the joystick or the variable speed thruster or just doing transverse thrust, she's not super fast. Therefore, you can predict kind of what's going on. It takes a bit to get it moving, but once it's moving, it's still moving. So you got to be thinking 3 steps ahead. Hope that was useful. Do get in the comments, communicate, engage. I'll pop up another essentially competing boat up on the screen right now for you to do your own homework. Love you lots. See you in the next one.